My name is Lucy Kerner. I work on security global technical strategy and go-to-market strategy and technical evangelism at Red Hat. Been at Red Hat a little over, okay, so before I start to introduce myself, what we're going to talk about is how can you use Red Hat's management products and OpenSCAP to automate security and compliance across not only virtual or physical only RHEL boxes, but we're talking containers across OpenStack, across et cetera. So this is what we're going to be talking about. What you're going to see is it's actually most of it towards the end. I'm going to actually, to me, like seeing a bullet point on a slide doesn't do me any good. I want to see it. So what you're going to see is an actual live integration, and this is from our. There's a lab version of this talk, which is tomorrow that I'm delivering with my teammates. It's repeated twice. So this is actually from that live environment where we've integrated all of the management products, so CloudForms, Ansible, Satellite 6.4, Insights, and OpenSCAP. And what you see is all of them working together, and each of them basically solving a different use case depending on, show me a thing of meltdown inspector across a hybrid environment. Show me which ones are vulnerable. Show me how you automate it in terms of remediation. These are kind of things that we're going to spend the next 45 minutes talking about. So, little introduction, because I said I want to make it a little bit light. I've been at Red Hat a little over 4 years. I actually spent most of that time, so 3 years of it, as a U.S. public sector cloud solutions architect. So what happens when you join Red Hat is they all give you we get a fedora, we get a red fedora. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make like this artistic little picture with my dogs, and so shadow puppies. So the logo, in case you don't know, that's Shadow Man. And so I said, okay, shadow puppies because my dog is wearing a red hat, but also because I have a darker dog, so that's also shadow puppies. So that's so I've been at Red Hat 4 years, and as I said earlier, currently I work on the technical evangelism for security across Red Hat's entire portfolio, and technical strategy, go-to-market strategy, things like that. My first job out, however, was at my parents' restaurant. This is my father. He specializes in what's called Korean Chinese food. What you don't realize I'm Korean. What you don't realize about Chinese food is that everywhere you go, it's different. In Korea, do not ask for your General Tso's chicken. Do not ask for your lo mein. They will not know what you're talking about. What we specialize in there is Chinese food that's very similar to Northern Chinese food, except we Koreanized it. So, this is handmade noodles. So what my dad's doing over there is he starts with a big piece of dough. He folds it, hits it on this wooden plank thing, folds it, and eventually it turns into noodles. When he keeps hitting it, folding it, hitting it, you can Google this, like Korean handmade noodles. So and I've tried this as I was a kid. It's impossible. I cannot make noodles out of this. Anyway, that's my first job. That little 30-seat restaurant actually put my sister and I through Carnegie Mellon, where I actually studied I went the traditional engineering route. I was an electrical and computer engineer, and I was convinced at the end of it that I wanted to be a processor designer, and which I did for the first 5 years of my career at IBM in Poughkeepsie, which is home of the Z and the Z series, Power series, and that's actually where a lot of the custom processor development is done. That's what I did for the first 5 years. We're talking, deep chip level design in terms of, instruction fetch, fixed point unit, floating point unit, that kind of thing. And I thought I wanted to do that, but I don't know if I was in my early 20s, and I was like, this is like crap living in Poughkeepsie. I was like, this is so boring, like 2 hours from New York City, et cetera. So I don't know if that was it, but that's what that's how I started my career. When I'm not at Red Hat, I have a certified therapy dog. What that means is that she is certified to visit hospitals, libraries. We've been doing this about, I would say, almost 9 years now. And it's probably one of the most rewarding things I do. This is actually at a library that we go once a month. Most of the kids who come to read to my dog, I thought were, just any kid, right? Most of them who come are interestingly autistic. The parents tell me that they actually don't talk all day long. And then when they actually come, they're like, I would never have guessed they were autistic. They're laughing, talking to my dog, and the parents are like, that's the first word she said all day, right? So it's really a rewarding thing I do. The other thing is I go to Washington Dulles invites us to come, United invites us to bring the therapy dogs during very high traffic travel seasons. We're talking Christmas and July 4th, things like that. And so this is, what they've noticed is that when they're pissed because their flights are delayed or whatever, they're like, here, have a dog and pet the dog, right? And they're like, oh, I guess my flight's delayed, that's okay. I'll go home tomorrow, whatever, the dog's here, right? So that's kind of, that's what I do outside, one of the things I do outside of Red Hat. So what are we gonna talk about? So there, you guys have a mix of these environments probably, right? You have VMware virtualization. I'm sure some of you are toying around with Amazon or Azure. Some of you are maybe toying around with containers. Now, what happens when you have this mixed environment is it becomes, the complexity obviously grows. When complexity grows, you're introducing new risk into your environment. You're manually monitoring systems for security and compliance, most likely. Some of you are probably, maybe you guys are automating a lot of this. Maybe you are doing infrastructure as code. I'm assuming a lot of you are not. A lot of you are doing manual. When you start to introduce containers, this is very challenging. When you start to introduce OpenSCAP, networking is not done the same way as physical machines and virtual machines. You have to think about things differently. It becomes very, very difficult to do things manually, especially when you start to introduce new technologies like this. Visibility and control, when you read papers by the Cloud Security Alliance and all these cloud security type papers, they always talk about visibility and control. This is one of the biggest challenges of managing hybrid cloud. If you can't actually see what you're trying to manage, how are you gonna control that? You've lost the security right there, right? If you can't see and you don't know where everything is, you don't know what's inside of that environment, you can't actually control it, you can't actually secure it. And then the ability to manage security policies consistently is also another challenge. And then you want to give your users, as operations, that ability to do self-service. Maybe you want to allow them to provision their own machine. But you want to do it in a very controlled manner. You do not want them to choose that they can provision to Amazon. Maybe I want to control what VPC they provision to. Maybe this guy is racking up my public cloud bill and I really don't want them to do that. Maybe I know I'm running out of space in VMware. Do I really want you to provision in VMware if I know I'm running out of space there, right? This is what I mean by the operations has to have this tight control over all of these mixed technologies or mixed environments that are being introduced. So why would you want to automate security and compliance? So this is from the 2017 Verizon Data Breach Report. And they said 81% of hacking-related breaches leverage either stolen or weak passwords. The reason I bring this up is because this is very surprising, because this is probably one of the easiest things you could fix by automation. But in 2017, this was 81% of hacking-related breaches. This is from Gartner. They said that 99% of vulnerabilities exploited by the end of 2020 continue to be ones that security professionals already know about, right? So if you already know about it, why aren't you doing something about it, right? So this is also a prediction by Gartner. When you start to manually ensure compliance, obviously this is a very time-consuming, tedious, and boring thing to do. When a human enters a data center, you will have errors, period. I mean, there's no question about it. If you have bad actions by some people in your organization, that's going to go undetected. There is no paper trail. If someone were to leave your company, and they change some config files, God help you try to figure out what the heck was changed, right? You have security, for the operations admins out there, who's always on your back? The security team. They're like, show me all the logs for this, show me what's inside this machine, show me this. You're spending all your time trying to give what the security teams want, right? You have this constant back and forth when you're doing things manually. Wouldn't it be nice to say, hey, security team, I will give you restricted access to these machines where you can see it without SSHing in. This is something that you'll see in the demo, that we'll talk about later. That way, you want to see which machines are vulnerable to Meltdown Inspector? Okay, here, log in as security with your credentials, and I have locked down the GUI so that you can only see what I, as admin, allow you to see. You want to see inside SSHD config? Okay, fine. I'll give you access to see it, but not edit it, not SSH into it. This is what I mean by this restricted access that now the admins benefit, because I don't have to waste my time telling security that, okay, fine, I'll drop everything and I'll give you what you want, your reports, whatever. But the security team's happy because they don't have to keep going to the admin team to get what information they need. They can do it and get it themselves. If you do things manually, you don't have this repeatability. You can't share amongst everybody. You can't verify. Now, here is the Nirvana picture I'm going to paint for you, and how the next part after this is I'm building the story to how Red Hat can help you solve this. So, and what I'm about to talk about here is what you're going to see in the demo. I'm telling it to you high level now. You're going to see it as a demo later on. Number one, centralized management of your entire environment. So what I mean by that is I don't care if it's Windows, Linux, public cloud, private cloud, OpenSCAP, containers. I want a central place to see everything. Why? Remember my first point? If you can't actually see it, how are you going to control it? How are you going to secure it? Secure that environment, right? Number two, everything has to be code. Your infrastructure has to be code. Your security has to be code. It has to be repeatable, shareable, verifiable, easier to do compliance audits. Preferably, you pick a coding language or a scripting language or automation language that is easy to understand by everyone, okay? And it is something like, I'll give you an example. Why do you think Ansible is so popular? It's not programming, it's YAML. Can you read XML? Can you read JSON? Then in one weekend, you can learn YAML. Not only that, there's hundreds of modules you can reuse. Not only that, there's hundreds and hundreds of roles you can reuse, right, in Ansible Galaxy. So you can literally be up and running, not know anything about Ansible, and be up and running in a matter of an hour, two. And actually, or maybe a weekend. I don't know how fast you learn, but in a matter of a weekend, you can have a real meaningful playbook. When I was a cloud solutions architect for U.S. public sector, I did a proof of concept with a government customer. And they said, Lucy, I am going crazy. This was like a head of operations. He's like, I'm going crazy. The Windows team is using PowerShell. Linux team is using Bash. The networking team is using God knows what other scripting language. I need everybody to speak the same language. Why did he want that? Because then you don't have to have specialized staff for this and specialized staff for this custom proprietary scripting language. You have that consistency, right? When this guy leaves, okay, who cares? I can find somebody who knows how to read YAML, right? And then you have the ability to share. Now the security team's like, oh, okay, there's a problem right there. Here's an Ansible playbook. And then the Linux team's like, oh, great, right? They're all speaking the same language, right? That's really important because you want that repeatability, the ability to share, verify, and importantly, do audits. You want to pass security audits. You want to make that as easy as possible because otherwise you'll be wasting your time again with the security team on your back all the time. How do you make it easy? As I said, give your security team some restricted access without SSH. Back and forth, you want to minimize that. This is about saving time, saving money, right? At the birth of every machine, it must be hardened. It must be security hardened and compliant from the birth of that machine so that you have some kind of lockdown state where every single system is staying. You want to have the flexibility to change it, and customize your security policies and then lock it down. This group is locked down to this security policy and this security profile. This other group is locked down to this other security profile. That way, you eliminate snowflakes from the start. You have that immutable OS. You want, after that, to do continuous security, continuous monitoring. When you read things like NIST Cybersecurity Framework, when you read things like IT Adaptive Security Architecture, they always talk about you need this continuous security, continuous monitoring, right? And that way, you're continuously, in an automated way, fixing your environment as issues come up, which they will. And as I said, you want to automate as much as possible because automation is going to save time and money. It is going to save you from that risk and reduce that risk and reduce those human errors. It is going to protect you from security breaches guaranteed. It is going, okay, not all of them, but this is going to alleviate that, right? This is going to ensure and enforce ongoing compliance from a consistent place using a language everybody speaks. You want to create that lockdown system. This is what automation helps you do. Automation helps you be repeatable, have the ability to share, verify, to do audits, gives you that ability to do continuous security monitoring and fixing of all the systems in a mixed environment. That's out of compliance. And then you want to do configuration management successfully, you have to have an automation strategy in place. Otherwise, it's not going to get done successfully. So how can Red Hat help? This sock here, I tried it to make that for my dog, right? It was like, this is impossible. I don't think that's actually a sock, but I don't know. So, okay, how can Red Hat help? So this is where we're going to talk about Red Hat. Let's talk about Red Hat's security. We don't sell security products, right? We don't have a security SKU. So what the heck do we mean by secure? How do we think about security? We think about it continuously, like I said, like the NIST cybersecurity framework says, or like the Gartner's IT adaptive architecture says. So this is about design security and from the start, whether it's NIST 800-53, whether it's Center for Internet Security, whatever it is, design it from the start. In Red Hat's case, we have various groups that can help you from innovation labs, from our consulting organization, et cetera. You want to build security into your application, and we have security tools in our middleware and our middleware products and also our container platform, OpenShift. You want to deploy on a trusted platform. So this is about the security technologies that are built into our base operating system, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, up to the layered products. So when I say layered products, I mean products that are installed on top of RHEL. So things like Red Hat Virtualization, things like Red Hat OpenStack, Red Hat OpenShift. These are all technologies that are built on top of RHEL, and it inherits the security benefits of RHEL. For example, FIPS is a requirement in the US government and in many other places, regulated industries. This is about verifying cryptographic modules. And this allows you to protect sensitive data, right? FIPS, we have FIPS certified for RHEL. If you run OpenShift on top of RHEL, you inherit RHEL's, OpenShift inherits RHEL's FIPS certifications. We actually have that wording that we got with NIST. And then what we're going to focus on is this manage and adapt section. This is about being proactive about security and automating it and using our management portfolio and also Red Hat Insights to have this adaptive, almost AI machine learning type of approach to security. And so as I said, we're going to focus on that manage adapt where our management portfolio is highlighted and also Red Hat Insights. So built-in security automation with OpenSCAP. OpenSCAP is our NIST certified SCAP scanner by Red Hat. If you go to NIST website, you'll actually find various other certified scanners, Nessus Tenable, and various other very expensive tools. What I've seen our customers do, for example, in the US government, is they say, we as the Linux admins are going to use OpenSCAP, which comes to me free with RHEL. We're going to be proactive about fixing our RHEL systems. That way, when Tenable Nessus comes in, that way when Qualys comes in, I'm not failing all over the place, right? I've already set a baseline where we were actually proactive about fixing some of these security issues that OpenSCAP caught. So this OpenSCAP scans for not only vulnerabilities, but it scans systems and containers, and it scans it for known vulnerabilities, but it also scans for compliance to security policies. We actually ship security content and security policies profiles with OpenSCAP. So let's say I want to lock down my system to the technical controls of PCI DSS. I can do that because we give you the profile for PCI DSS, US Department of Defense STIG, many others, US government baseline, et cetera. In RHEL 7.5, not only that, we gave you the ability to remediate with Ansible playbooks. We ship Ansible playbooks for these profiles. Why is that significant? That means, okay, I'm going to use these Ansible playbooks, and I'm going to create that security compliant host, right at provisioning. It's going to be part of my Ansible flow. It's going to be like, okay, I'm going to provision, post-provisioning, I'm going to lock it down to US government baseline. I'm going to install, I don't know, these packages. I'm going to register with satellite, blah, blah, blah. You're going to see this workflow. This is actually what we did in our lab. As I said, it's free with RHEL. Why won't you use it? Why wouldn't you use it, right? This natively ships this validated national checklist content, as I said. There's also a tool called SCAP Workbench that is also free with RHEL. What this is it's a GUI front end for OpenSCAP. It allows you to act as that scanner. It allows you to do tailoring. This is the big significant thing what people use SCAP Workbench for. They say, look, Lucy, I really don't need to be as locked down as US Department of Defense did. Let me modify so that my passwords are not changed every 20 days. Or I want to change it this way. It's literally a GUI front end that allows you to uncheck things you want and check other rules that you do want. So that way, you have somewhere to start. You're not writing like this complex security content from scratch. You're starting somewhere from scratch, so a baseline that we already give you, and then you're modifying it to make it as close to where you want to be, or almost exactly to where you want to be. And then this gives you that local scanning of a single machine. I talked about auditors and how we want to keep auditors off our back, right? Well, so OpenSCAP reports was designed to keep auditors happy. What do I mean by that? There's red light, green light. This rule passes, this rule doesn't pass. This rule fails, this rule doesn't fail. There are descriptions of what that rule is, why it passed, why it didn't pass, and also if you were to skip that rule, you can write little text about, well, I'm exempt, I want to exempt from, I'm skipping this because of this, right? Security auditors want you to prove to them why you're not doing certain checks, right? This is a thing you can hand them. Here, take this report that I just automatically got by running OpenSCAP, and then I've proven to you why I'm passing things, why I'm failing things, and why I've skipped some rules, right? This is not about scanning one machine. You guys are not running your business on one VM, right? I have thousands of Linux and Windows systems. They're in VMware, they're in Azure, they're in Amazon. I want to scan it, I want to report on it, and remediate all of these. I want to provide a customized self-service portal for my users to provision that security-compliant host at provisioning time, but I, as the operations, want tight control over that infrastructure. I do not want my users to know what that infrastructure looks like or to use it. I want to do that ongoing continuous security and continuous monitoring and continuous remediation. I'm starting to introduce container images. There's now more container images than I ever had to deal with for VMs. I want to make sure that there's no high severity vulnerabilities in these container images. And I want to do that in an automated fashion. And I want to find out which of my mixed systems in my environment are vulnerable to high impact severities, such as Meltdown Inspector, in an automated fashion. And I want to provide that security auditors that self-service visibility into the environment so that I can use my time as operations more efficiently, that I'm not babysitting them to give them information they want every 5 minutes. So this is what we're going to see. Oh, why is it doing that? So the secret here and what you're going to see and how this is going to be achieved is using a combination of OpenSCAP, which I talked about, with our management portfolio. This is CloudForms, Ansible, Satellite, and Insights. Elevator pitch of what these are. CloudForms is our hybrid cloud manager. What I mean by that is it can see into an environment that's virtualization environment. Maybe you have Amazon, maybe you have OpenStack. CloudForms the first thing it does is it discovers what's there, okay? And it doesn't just tell you what vCenter can tell you. It can see deep into the OS. I can tell you what's inside SSHD config without agents, and even though the system is off. So when I was a cloud solutions architect, how our government customers used it was they said, oh, this is brilliant, because then before those machines turn on, it's required that it gets scanned by CloudForms to know what's in these systems. Because now I know what's in these systems, I as operations can decide, oh, look, this setting's not set in SSHD config. I'm going to make sure that these VMs never turn on. Or I want to tag it as, don't turn on, or whatever, right? So you can, when you have that visibility, you suddenly get control of your environment, right? Not only can it do that, it can also give you reporting capabilities and ability to create control policies and ability to create automation workflows. Automation workflows can be created by using the internal Ruby language or using internal Ansible. And actually, all the automation you're going to see in the demo is all driven by Ansible, using the Ansible engine that's inside CloudForms. we talked about Ansible. This is our automation language. If you've noticed, Ansible is included in almost every single Red Hat product at this point. From RHEL, it's gonna eventually come to Satellite. It's inside Insights. It's very strategic at Red Hat because it's included in so many places, including CloudForms, as I said. So this is our easy to learn, easy to consume automation language, YAML format. Satellite is all about managing your RHEL system, everything from content management, subscription management, provisioning, config management. Insights is our SaaS product. This product is, there's a lot of, I don't know if you've seen Paul Cormier's keynote, but this product is getting beefy, we're beefing it up a lot in terms of adding even more capability, adding ability to put AI, ML, this knowledge that Satellite knows about your environment, this knowledge that CloudForms knows about your environment, that's going to get fed eventually to Insights. Right now, Insights gets information from customer support tickets, and also things like our Red Hat product security team. And then with that knowledge, that intelligence, Insights says, oh, look, I found these issues in your environment, these security issues, these performance issues, these config issues, and here it is. Not only do I show you, I actually provide Ansible playbooks for them, which you can download, and then you can run, and then I want to fix this one machine, this one problem, or you can fix all. I want to fix all of these issues across all of my systems in my environment, right? So this is a way where you don't have to write the playbook. Insights gives it to you. So what are you going to see? Now this is the demo time. So that next half is a demo. So what you're going to see is using Red Hat technology in a mixed hybrid environment. Specifically, it's actually Red Hat virtualization, Red Hat OpenStack, Red Hat OpenShift. So you're talking virtualization, private cloud, containers. How do I create that security compliant host at provisioning time? Now, you can do that with RHEL directly, or you can use Satellite to create that lockdown system. What you're going to see is how do you do this with CloudForms and Ansible. You want to do that. Also, you're going to see continuous monitoring and security for both virtual machines and containers. What do I mean by that specifically? You want the ability to automate ongoing security compliance and remediations. Do the enforcing and governance and control in an automated fashion. That visibility and control for the operations team. How can I create this restricted visibility into my environment for my security teams? And how do I do proactive security and automated risk management with Insights? So this is what you're going to see. So yes, but I believe always that demos are worth 1,000 words, so this is what I'm going to show you. All right, so here we go. This is CloudForms. I'm going to provision a RHEL system inside Red Hat virtualization. So this was the service catalog that I'm presenting to the user. I'm going to put a VM name in, whatever I want. This is completely customizable. This is how we decided to make it look. I locked down the IP address, and I gave them a choice of what profile do you want to lock it down to. You know, those profiles that you saw earlier, remember, I don't know, I mentioned earlier to you guys that that profile is actually, Ansible remediations are available for security profiles. I mentioned that, right? So what happens when that user is ordering the system is actually looking inside that directory, which is like user share, I can't remember, SCAP, something, something. And then we look in our Ansible playbook, and in the end, I'll show you where the links to all of these Ansible playbooks we have for our labs. In that Ansible playbook, we have a Rev provisioning Ansible playbook. And what we do is we look and say, okay, I'm going to look inside this directory. I'm going to grab I'm going to present all these YAML files, which are all the YAML files for these profiles, right? Security profiles, PCI DSS, whatever. And then I'm going to present it, let the user pick, and then that's going to be part of my post-provisioning in my Ansible playbook. Okay, so this is that's why you see these profiles here. This is standard. I've actually locked down the IP addresses. Then I press submit. Now, what happens when that presses submit is CloudForms is using its internal Ansible engine, and then running the playbook for it. So you can see all the steps in our playbook, everything from actual provisioning to registering to a satellite to things like doing the logging, doing the configuring with Red Hat Insights. This is all part of our playbook. So you can see setting up the repos, all this stuff is doing. Here's the actual XCAP remediation playbook to lock it down as a post-provisioning step to that SCAP profile that the user picked. In this case, it's a standard one. So here's our virtual machine. And then when I look inside that virtual machine, I can see, what did I name it? I named it this. There's my IP address. Now I'm going to enforce compliance with security policies in an automated fashion. What do I mean that specifically? I'm going to log in as a restricted user. That's lab user, which the admin has created. Now, as this restricted user cannot do anything to modify the systems except his own. He has an OpenSCAP system. Now I'm going to look inside this OpenSCAP system, and I'm going to see it's non-compliant. Why? Now you've given the user to have control over his or her own instances. Why is it not compliant? I'm going to dig a little further. It's not compliant because it's vulnerable to Meltdown and Spectre. So that's why it's non-compliant. So now I'm going to go back into that system. It's an OpenSCAP. Again, it's an OpenSCAP instance. I'm going to look inside the packages. I told you agentless. CloudForms knows all this information about your systems without using any agents, and even though the system is off. I can tell you every single package, versions, release numbers that are installed on that machine. With that information, I can easily tell this is kernel version 6.9.3. That's an older version of the kernel. That's vulnerable to Meltdown and Spectre. When I see that, I can immediately create a control policy and make it so that it's, to tell me that it's vulnerable. I've already installed the latest kernel. I'm going to do a rescan of it because now the latest kernel's on there. And I'm going to do a rescan to see that now it's compliant because I've updated the kernel. Right? So now it's compliant. If you want to see further why it's compliant, you just do what you did earlier. You go and you just look, and it says now yes, you are compliant because you've updated the kernel. It's now not a 6.9.3 kernel. Now that I have that, I can actually create a report. I also told you that one of the things CloudForms does is it actually can create reports. So here's a report of every single system that's vulnerable, a VM vulnerable. You can see there's one VM that's vulnerable. That's a Rev VM, and another one that's OpenSCAP. Now, I can see inside the file system, as I said earlier, that earlier you also saw which hosts are vulnerable. Here's SSHD config. I can see inside SSHD config, password, here's the password authentication, yes. I'm seeing this without SSHing in. Now, I'm logged in as the security auditor here, right? So this is what I mean by you can give restricted access to people without giving them the ability to be root or to SSH it to machines. This is a security user who logs in. He has the ability to see reports. Maybe you want them to see reports of systems because then they don't have to bug you about getting information about your environment, right? They can also, maybe you want them to look at inside config files. Maybe that might be a good thing you want to give them access to without SSH. All they can do is come in here and look at it, right? So this is what I mean by, you give restricted access to certain users. A good example would be the security officer. So I'm going to look inside SSHD config, and I see all this information about it. Now I'm going to create a control policy in OpenSCAP. There's a control policy that I've created that says, hey, when an OpenSCAP instance power is on, I want you to attach this particular security group. It's called a production security group. Whenever an instance turns on, maybe I want every turned on instance to be on this particular production security group or certain security group. So that's what I'm going to do in this case. So I'm going to go into that particular OpenSCAP instance. So you can see I'm going into this lab. It's called Lab 3 VM3 OpenSCAP instance. I'm going to power it on. The minute I do that, it triggers that control policy that you saw earlier. So when that turns on, what's going to happen is it's going to put this into the production. It's going to add the production security group for this OpenSCAP instance without me doing anything. I literally just turned it on. So this is where you've now automated that whole thing. So you can see now the production security groups attached to this VM simply by turning it on because I have that control policy in place. So this is kind of like what I mean by automating all of this easily. So this is OpenSCAP, OpenShift now. Now, I have a control policy that says there's three control policies in place. And this is added to my entire OpenShift environment. So things like, for example, I want to do things like every incoming image, I want to be scanned. Whenever you see a high vulnerable security image, a container image, I want you to prevent it from running in OpenShift again. So this is a way where you have CloudForms managing the security of OpenShift's container instances. So now, whenever a new image is scanned, discovered, for example, container image discovered, it initiates a scan on it. So that's what this control policy does. And then I want to initiate the actual analysis of the container image. And then I also want to schedule the, once the analysis is complete, I want to check the host or VM for compliance. So this control policy is on OpenShift provider, which means that every single container image inside OpenShift gets this policy applied to them without them even realizing that this policy in place. I, as admin, put this policy in place. So if I go into the OpenShift provider, then I can see, hey, what policies are on this provider? Here's all the different ones. You can just put a check mark next to the one you want. So you can see the OpenSCAP profiles here. So that means that all container images inside OpenShift get this policy applied. So whenever there is a new image, it's going to get scanned. Whenever there's a severely high vulnerable image, it's going to get tagged by CloudForms and annotated in OpenShift so that it can never be run again inside OpenShift. So this is a way where literally by the click of GUI in the GUI, you've now prevented high severity vulnerabilities from ever running inside your container environment. So when I go inside the OpenShift environment to look inside it, so I can see here, I can see all of the nodes, the container images. So I'm going to go dig into the container image a little further. And then from there, I can see here's my OpenSCAP scan results. So I can see that here's all the 6 scan results. And then just like you saw earlier with the reports, when I click on that, what's going to happen is I'm going to be able to see, OK, here's my green light, red light, pass, fail. And then I'm going to be able to see all of the scan results for that particular container image. So you can see here's all the different rules, and then here are all my severity high. So now you can suspect that for this particular container image, that if I try to launch a container with that image, you would suspect that OpenShift is going to prevent me from doing that because of the fact that this control policy is in place for every container image for OpenShift. So I'm going to try and do that right here. So you can see here I'm trying to launch a container with that particular image. And so when I try to do that, however, I'm going to add it to the project. This is that. I'm going to try to add that vulnerable image to that container. I'm going to try to launch it, I mean. And so when I go there, I'm going to say I'm going to deploy this image. I'm going to put that vulnerable container image name into here so I can deploy that image. And then when I say I'm going to try to deploy with the known high severity vulnerabilities, and then the minute I try to do that, it's going to so it's asking you information like, okay, what's the name, et cetera. And then when you try to say, okay, let's go create it based on that image, what happens is OpenShift is going to immediately come back and say, sorry, you can't launch this because there's severity high vulnerabilities in it. So this is how CloudForms is acting as that manager for the OpenShift infrastructure and managing making sure that the container images do not have any severity high vulnerabilities in it. So you can see here there's an error creating pod, and then that deployment failed. I can create reports also. Hey, show me all the non-compliant containers. Show me the name, the state, show me whether it was compliant or not. Now I'm going to automate the ongoing remediations and security. So I'm in a virtual machine. I'm going to do an OpenSCAP scan. When I do this, it's talking to the OpenSCAP tool inside Satellite. And I'm going to use that to scan my system on a per button kind of automated basis without going into Satellite. That way I can scan here's all my profiles I have in Satellite. I'm going to use I created a custom one from SCAP Workbench that does one thing and one thing only. It checks to see if the aid package is installed. So I'm going to go and press create. Here it's running through that playbook, which, like I said, it's just going to talk to Satellite, and it's going to run the OpenSCAP scan against that custom profile, which in this case is scanning against that custom profile, which just checks to see if the aid package is installed. That's it. So I'm going to go and look in the virtual machine now that this has passed, that the scan has successfully run. And then what I'll notice right away is that we set up in the workflow is that when the scan passes or fails, you want to tag it accordingly. You can see here that it's non-compliant because the scan has failed. I want to keep I want to track which ones are failing certain scans and what, because then I can do a report. I can say, show me every single VM and show me the scan results. This one here is non-compliant to the RHEL 7 custom. This one is compliant, and this one is also compliant. I can create these reports. I can create them as a security auditor. You can have the security guy create these reports. You want to know if it's compliant, you run the report. Don't bother me, right? And then I can also, but as the remediate, you don't want to do that, right? When they tell you there's an issue, you as the admin want to remediate because you need root access for that. So here I'm going to remediate the RHEL 7 custom. What that's going to do is, again, going to talk to satellite. I'm going to wait till C8 is installed. It's installed here now because at the push of that button, that the playbook got installed. That playbook got launched to install aid. So now here I'm going to redo the scan, and then when I redo the scan, it's going to again launch that scan playbook, and then when I redo the scan, you're going to redo the scan for that playbook that you just ran, right? And then because I put aid in the package, you're going to see that, okay, now when I scan it, it's going to pass, and now I can redo my report. And now when I redo my report, I can come in and I can see now everything has passed the RHEL 7 custom. And then I can see other profiles, like I said, other reports, as I said, such as like non-compliant containers. Now let's move to insights. Insights, you can say, okay, insights, I'm going to see this system here, this host, all the security issues with that host. For example, there's a payload injection issue. There's an A there, meaning that you can get an Ansible playbook from that issue. It tells you the detected issues. It tells you how to fix it, all in English. But you also can create Ansible playbooks from that, for those issues as well. So that's what I'm doing next. So you can see what we're doing next is I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm going to create a plan. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to create a plan to fix this particular vulnerability, the payload injection issue, right? So I'm going to say, okay, here's the name of my plan. It's called payload remediation. Here's the specific system. The system's called IC4. Now, what do I want that playbook to have? I want it to fix I don't want it to fix everything right now. I just wanted to fix this one thing. I just wanted to fix the kernel vulnerable to man-in-the-middle payload injection. When I do this, it's going to create that playbook to fix that one issue. So, but that's just the choice I made. I could have made the playbook fix everything, right? And I am going to do that later. But right now, I'm just doing this. I also have a choice. Okay, do you want to do this fix or this fix? Because this one has a reboot required. This one doesn't. Insights gives you these kinds of choices. And you can say, okay, I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to go to Ansible Tower, and I'm going to launch this playbook against my systems, right? In Ansible has Tower integrated with Insights, which means from Ansible you can actually see these security issues that we saw earlier from Insights as well, directly from Ansible Tower. And then here's that payload injection. You can see that here's my remediation plan that I created earlier, right? And then, so from here, now that you have the plan in place, then what you can do now is you can create the template, right, job template. Ansible Tower has job templates that you create to run your playbook. So here's my payload fix job template. I press the little rocket to actually run the playbook. So when I press that rocket, okay, from my given playbook that Insights gave me, I'm now running and fixing those issues, that payload injection issue, on that system, on IC4. You can see that has run, and now it's successful, and now those actions that we saw earlier, it went down a little bit because we just fixed that issue. Now I'm going to create the planner for fixing every single issue that Insights has pointed out for me for IC4. And then when I do that, then I can actually say, okay, this is my plan for fixing all. And then here I'm going to make sure that I pick if I want to do reboot, which one of these would I actually like to do as my resolution. Then here's my fix all template. Just like before, I'm going to run it by just pressing that rocket button. And then instead of fixing just one issue, it's actually going to fix all those issues that you checked against all of your systems that you have in your inventory, in the Insights inventory. So now you can see a lot of issues went down because of the fact that, that you've done this across for fixes, many fixes, not just one or two type of fixes. So that was the demo. So hopefully you guys got a good idea now of how they would all kind of work together. So the idea is that we give you that flexibility, that choice. I just showed you how they all kind of work together, but doesn't mean that you have to use all of these management products. It really just depends on your use case. But depending on your use case, you can do all of this. You can create that lockdown system. You can do that continuous monitoring and security. You can automate ongoing security. You can enforce governance control. You can have that visibility and control and restricted visibility. You can do that proactive security. We all, with that flexibility and choice, depending on your use case, you would pick and choose these management products to use in your environment. And the idea is that our management portfolio is providing you the ability to automate all the things, automate what makes sense for you, and security is a great use case for automation. I mentioned to you that there's a lab version of this. That's actually going on tomorrow from 10 to noon, and then repeated again from 1 to 3. It's actually, they're exact copies of each other. Our lab doc is on that page right there. And I'm going to put the slides on the however we distribute the slides on the, I think, I just know where I put it in the speaker portal, but I think you guys get it somewhere from when you click on the session, right? So it'll be there, but the lab doc is actually on GitHub, and you can see our directions there, and they're all cloud hosted. What you do if you want to get access to it, but you can't get into the lab, let's say, because it's full, I think it is, both of them are full. You can actually work with, if you're a partner or a Red Hat person, right after the week of Summit, we're actually going to put it all on Red Hat Product Demo System, which a lot of our demos live in there, and actually all Summit labs will be up there as well, because all Summit labs are cloud hosted this year. So if not, you can work with your account team, who Red Hat people and partners have access to this, right? As I said, they can give you the code to get in, the 4-letter GUID. All the Ansible playbooks I mentioned is also on our GitHub for our lab, and we also used Ansible remediation playbooks that is built into RHEL 7.5. So those were used to lock down our systems to the profile that the user chose in the service dialog. So there are a lot of security sessions at Summit. There's over 50 of them. I wanted to highlight a few. For those of you, I think this one already went on, offensive and defensive security with Ansible. Customers talking about API management in a hybrid environment. I mentioned my labs. If you want to go very, very deep into OpenSCAP, that lab, Practical SCAP, is actually taught by the 2 lead engineers for SCAP, Martin Preisler and Watson Sato. Birds of a feather, myself and Crow from Product Security is leading a security birds of a feather. In terms of Ask Us Anything, I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions about Max Meltdown Inspector, and he's the guy to answer all of that. Security-oriented OpenShift within regulated environments. There's a talk by the bank of Santander, and there's another talk that's for OpenShift in a disconnected environments that the U.S. Navy is talking at. Security roadmap. This is about our general Red Hat security roadmap for across the portfolio, led by Mark Thacker, who is our RHEL product manager for RHEL security technologies. What's new in OpenShift, OpenStack platform, connecting the power of data security. This is led by our data security and data privacy team. There are various booth demos that I've provided to all the booths there in the Red Hat booth. Demos that you saw earlier here about that we just talked about automation, security, and compliance for a hybrid environment. Demos for RHEL security technologies. Product security is down there as well if you wanted to talk to them in detail. This is just a few snippets, a few of them, not all of them. There's, as I said, there's over 50 of them.